For what feels like the longest time, I've wanted to open a tier on Patreon that offered physical rewards, and I'm really excited to announce that earlier this month I launched a print tier. It took a lot of thought to decide what I wanted to do and how I wanted to put together a tier with physical rewards, but for the time being, I settled on offering a Patreon exclusive print for a print tier. In the future, I'd like to open a tier that has an exclusive print as well as an exclusive sticker, but for the time being, while I just sort of test the waters of mailing stuff out, I'm really excited about having this tier available. If you're interested in pledging to this tier or just checking out my Patreon page in general, there's a link to it in the description box below. So now on my Patreon page, I have my original tier, which is called Strawberry Parfait, as well as the print tier, which is called Chocolate Parfait. And in case you're wondering, yes, the tier images are based off of my cats. Strawberry Parfait is Aslan and Chocolate Parfait is Fiora. So the art you're seeing me paint in this video is also the piece of artwork that I'm making into the exclusive print for November's Patreon tier reward. The only way to get a hold of this print is to pledge to my print tier between now and the end of this month. After November 30th, this will be considered sort of a retired print and it won't be available again. As far as opening a Patreon goes and just working on physical rewards for a Patreon, I was actually really torn between whether I wanted to open an online storefront or if I wanted to offer physical rewards for Patreon first. In the end, I just decided to start with Patreon since the work I need to put into it can be a lot more precisely limited when it comes to like shipping rewards. Things are really simplified since it can all be mailed with stamps. Every single piece of mail that goes out will have the exact same thing inside. And just a lot of simplified things from Patreon versus with a shop, I feel like it's a lot more complex. There's a lot more work that has to go into it, a lot more products going in and out, stuff like that. So I figured Patreon would be a really good starting point for me shipping stuff out and just like fulfilling, I guess, orders, if you want to consider them that, but that's the reason that I decided to start with a Patreon. I know a lot of people are really interested in me personally having an online storefront, but I felt like this would be a less overwhelming start for me. I was also debating on whether or not I wanted the Patreon print to be exclusive to Patreon or more so of an early access sort of thing to prints that I would eventually offer in an online store. I know the concept of the prints being exclusive draws a lot more people in, but initially I was really hesitant to offer that because I'm still trying to build up a selection of art that I would be selling as prints, and I'm not making a whole lot of art right now, so dedicating one finished and well-rounded piece to be an exclusive to just a single month of Patreon rewards was kind of overwhelming to me at first. And that sounds silly to say because all it is just one finished piece that I like and I'm willing to put out for prints. That's all I have to do once a month, just one finished piece. But the state I was in mentally like a couple months ago when it came to making art, that really felt impossible to me. Like just being able to put out normal artwork that I would be sketching and stuff, but then having to have that one finished piece, that was a little bit overwhelming at first. I've definitely come to terms with it and like put it in a realistic sense of like, that's so manageable, that's so easy for me to do. That's just sitting down for a day or two to put out a piece of art that I am proud of. But I also played around with the idea of having the prints just be an exclusive finish or an exclusive size that was special just for Patreon. But in the end, I decided to backtrack and just go with having the artwork itself being exclusive to Patreon. I had also done a bunch of polls on my Instagram asking people's preferences whether or not they wanted it to be exclusive, if they were only interested if it was exclusive, etc. And I was really surprised with how many people like really wanted it to be an exclusive print, which completely makes sense to me in the grand scheme of things, but that's what I decided to go with. I felt like it would just be better overall. And in case people are more so picky on the actual artwork itself and they want to know what piece of artwork they'll be getting or if they want to pledge for that month based off of the artwork, my goal is to have the artwork finished and posted to social media between like the last week of the previous month of Patreon and the first week of the current month. So for example, if it was January's print, I'd want to have January's print available on social media for people to see between like the end of December / the beginning of January. My goal in my head is to have it by at the very latest like the first of the month, so that way if people want it they can pledge for that month. If they don't want it, they can either take out their pledge or they can just do something about it. That's my goal. I don't know if that's actually going to happen because I feel like some months I will definitely get behind. That's just how things work, but that's my goal. That's what I'm aiming to shoot for. Just that way people know what the available print is, and that way if they want it, they can pledge for that month. Also, in very fun news, I've mentioned a lot recently that my production of art in general has been very low over the past few months, but in the past week or so, I've actually had a huge increase in momentum when it comes to making art. It honestly started pretty much right when I made my print tier live on Patreon, and I think the reason behind that is just because it's something it's not only holding me accountable to making artwork, but on top of that, it's also something that I'm just really excited about and something I've wanted to do for myself for a really long time. I really didn't think that it would have any kind of impact on my workflow, but launching my Patreon tier has honestly made me really excited just about making art in general again. I've had a fairly good workflow for the past week or so, and I've done a lot of sketchbook spreads, which has been really nice for me because honestly, I haven't done like really nice full sketchbook spreads like I normally do in a while, so it's really nice to just be able to whip one of those out over the course of a couple hours and feel more like myself when it comes to creating art. Pretty much as far as Patreon goes, every time I'd come across something that would either physically or mentally get in the way of me actually offering physical rewards, my first reaction was just to give up on doing this completely, so it's taken a lot longer than it realistically should have for me to get to the point of being able to do something like this. But that being said, I'm really proud of myself for putting myself out there and opening a print tier. I definitely think that opening an online storefront will become a bigger priority for me than Patreon is, but for the time being, I'm just really looking forward to everything involved in the process of making monthly prints, whether it be making the artwork, printing the prints at home, or just mailing stuff out. I think it's going to be a really fun experience, and I'm really excited to also be like actually mailing my artwork to people and in a way like selling prints. That's very exciting for me because I've never done that before. And yes, this video is pretty much a 10-minute long video of me plugging my own Patreon, but it's something that I'm very excited about, so I hope it's not too obnoxious to sit here and listen to me talk about. As far as the artwork in this piece goes though, I initially was actually going to paint a character that I did, I think it was like for the May 2019 art snacks. It was like a ghost, almost like fish-like girl that I painted. I think she was just like an underwater ghost girl. I don't really remember, but that's the character that I was originally going to paint for this, and then it ended up looking like one of my original characters, Alyssa, so I ended up switching it over last minute. I wasn't super happy with the original concept to begin with, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. I didn't plan the colors or anything ahead of time. I was kind of just winging it as far as design goes, and it ended up turning out really nice. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it really captures a lot of my artwork in just this one piece. I threw some flowers in there, I drew a cute girl, it's very bright and colorful, so very happy to have this as my November Patreon print, and I hope you guys like it too. And if you guys have any questions or anything when it comes to my Patreon page or just Patreon in general, feel free to comment them below and I'll try to answer as soon as I can. I try to be really active when it comes to replying to comments to make sure any questions get answered, or just replying in general because I really like interacting with you guys, so I'll definitely be on top of that. There's definitely more information as far as the tier goes on my Patreon page though, so if it's something like that, I definitely recommend checking there first, but if it's a question you can't find an answer to, I will be more than happy to help in the comments. And then as a fun little extra to celebrate the launch of the print tier on my Patreon page, everyone who pledges to my new tier for this month will also be getting a free sticker of the artwork for the Strawberry Parfait tier. It's a little bigger than 2.5 inches and it's printed on a nice glossy vinyl. I thought this would be a really fun thing to throw in and just a nice way to say thank you to anyone who supports me for my first month. And speaking of which, big thank you to all of my original patrons who supported me and continue to do so before I had physical rewards available. It's really heartwarming knowing that there were people out there willing to support me regardless of receiving a physical reward in return, so I appreciate it so much. Patreon as a whole is just a really cool platform and I'm very happy to be expanding on it. I have both a $2 tier and a $10 tier, and I know to some people $2 or $10 just over the course of 1 month is really not that much money, but like to put it into perspective on my part, like if 5% of my YouTube subscribers pledged to my $2 tier, which is just $2 a month, I would literally be able to quit my job and do artwork full time. So when it comes to supporting not just me, literally any artist that you like their artwork on the internet or wherever it may be, like $10 is a lot of money, I get that, but like even $2 makes such a big difference. So just food for thought. You want to give me $2 a month? That'd be really cool. If you can't afford it though, that's also really cool because supporting me on YouTube, just watching my videos, even not commenting, just watching my videos is so much support and I really appreciate it. So if you made it this far, thank you, and I'm really impressed that you listened to me talk like a salesperson for a couple minutes there because oof, but it has to happen. I never plug my Patreon and I really want to plug it now because I have physical rewards and I'm very excited about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please check out my Patreon below if you're interested. There'll be a little card thingy on the screen and there'll be a link in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in the next one.